Hello, everyone. Welcome to BRAP, another Basement Radio Arcade podcast. It is April the 3rd, first episode for the month of April. By the way, I want to just say thank you to everyone who's supported us the last 2 months. The last 2 months for us have been really great in terms of channel growth and really just really appreciate the support. Look, we're not the biggest channel in the world or on YouTube, but damn it, we love video games. And we're happy to have each and every one of you here in the live chat with us every night that we go live or every BRAP rant that I do. So, and even a big thank you to those who catch the replay. So I just want to say thank you to everyone. So if you're new, consider subscribing, hit the bell notifications so you're alerted when we go live, and hit the like button right now. Helps out the channel. Again, thank you, and thank you again. So, want to give a big shout out to everyone. Everyone in the live chat right now: Atakan Oslik, Capono 5150, J Gamer UK, Hero Down Under, Dark Zone 2025, the Great B Rich, your boy Roy, what's up, and Truth Serum. So, thank you, gentlemen, for joining us here in the live chat. We do have and Skylar G, what's going on? We do have a first-time guest here. This is actually somebody I met last week on Mooch's Crossfire. We have... Oh, Hamp will be here soon, Capono. He's on his way. He will be here shortly. But I met this individual, this gentleman, last week on Crossfire. He's a first-time guest here. We want to welcome Detective Seeds. Detective Seeds, how are you this evening, sir?
I'm good, man. I appreciate the invite coming on. It was good talking games with you. What was that, last Thursday? Had a good time and glad to be here. Appreciate the invite, man.
Yes. Quick sound check, by the way. I meant to ask you this earlier. Can everyone hear Detective Seeds okay? Everyone in the live chat, just let us know. And you can hear me okay. I meant to do a mic check before, so apologies. But everyone in the live chat, if you could just let us know how we sound, I definitely appreciate it. So, no, Detective Seeds, I'm glad we had the opportunity to discuss video games Crossfire last week. That was a great show. So Detective C, some of the folks in the live chat are saying if you could turn up your mic a little bit.
Yep, I can do that. Can you hear me now? Is that better?
How does Seeds sound now, everyone?
I'm at 93%, so hopefully that's better.
You might want to crank it to 100.
Yeah.
All right, everyone's chat. Okay, they're saying better. All right, so they can hear you better. Perfect.
All right, perfect. I'm pretty soft-spoken anyway, so I guess I have to talk with my man voice tonight.
So Detective Seeds has a YouTube channel. I just dropped his link here in the live chat, so please check out Detective Seeds. So you do a lot of previews, reviews, walkthroughs. Tell us a little bit about your YouTube channel.
Yeah, man, I appreciate that. I do a lot of reviews. I'm fortunate enough to get early access to a lot of games. So I'm a veteran from the military, and I do focus and cover accessibility features within some of my reviews and previews. Kind of discuss that trend in the industry and where we can help. I'm working with a couple studios on some advisement. Based off of feedback I get from guys who do struggle with certain accessibility needs, and then man, I've gotten so addicted to platinum trophy hunting. I put up a video today of South Park Snow Day, so if you're a big South Park fan, make sure you check that out. It was a ton of fun. Not the greatest game, but I've always been a South Park fan, man. So I had to knock it out. It was a good little 18-hour playthrough. So.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about your gaming history, how long you've been gaming for, what got you into video games, what was the first platform you played video games on?
Dude, I played, I'm in my mid-30s, so I think the first one I played was like probably Atari, Pong on the TV, just kind of like the slide, just to kind of start out. And then my mom, she was a general manager for, I don't know if you ever remember Toys R Us?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so she was general manager for Toys R Us. I don't even know if that store's still around, but
no. Well, I think they have like smaller like sections at Macy's now. But I don't think they're at
Oh,
all
do they?
Macy's. Yeah, but I do remember the brick and mortar Toys R Us. I mean, that's where I would go if I wasn't at the mall buying video games from Babbage's or KB Toys. I was getting them from Toys R Us. Yeah.
So she would come home. I was kind of lucky because she would, get discounts and stuff. So I had Sega Genesis, man. I had Game Boy, Nintendo. I've always had both consoles growing up. I know we kind of talked earlier about, kind of Xbox and PlayStation, Nintendo. I've always been fortunate to have all of them growing up. I do lean more, now into the PlayStation world. That's just kind of where I'm at in life and my choice of games that I prefer now. And obviously the setup, but really, I'll tell you the main reason that I really game on the PlayStation is I have broken all my fingers and my left wrist, and the dual sense, the setup of the controller, having the sticks so close together, I do a lot of really long gaming sessions doing reviews and stuff. So having that closeness on the controller has made my hands hurt less. So that's really what kind of drove me even more to the PlayStation console was their controller. And so, but gaming history, man, I'll give you kind of my top games. My favorite game ever was the original Twisted Metal. My dad was in the Marine Corps. He deployed a lot whenever I was young, so I grew up playing that game a ton to kind of pass that time. And then I moved on to GoldenEye to 007, kind of got me into FPS.
Yep.
And then I'd say number 3 would be Halo. The reason I say that is that was the first time really ever connecting with other people from kind of all over, and doing the LAN parties, and our football team, we would change each week of whose house we would go play Halo at. And man, I'd say to round off my list of like top games, probably Grand Theft Auto series would round off my like top games of that I just could go back to, or that were meaningful to me growing up. But I'd say now my top game I've played in the last 5-10 years, probably Ghost of Tsushima. That's probably my favorite game.
That's a great choice. It's a good game.
It was phenomenal. I'm working on the platinum right now to do a video of it, playing on lethal, so it's taking me a little bit longer. But just the story and the setting of the game and what they did there, I'm anticipating number 2 will get announced here pretty soon. And just what they did with that game. If you're in chat or you watch this and you've never played it, I mean, it is. If you pay attention to the story and what's going on within that time frame and within that game, it'll really draw out some feelings of what he's going through in that game without spoiling too much.
Yeah. No, I hear you. Yeah. So real quick, I do want to welcome Game Logic to the show. Game Logic, how are you this evening?
Good, man. How are you guys?
Can't complain, man. It's Wednesday. So Detective Seed. So what are you playing right now? What are some of the games you're playing, or the only game? Like myself, I'm only playing one game right now. But what are you currently gaming or playing?
Yeah, so I have 2 more trophies for Alone in the Dark to do a video on that. Ghost of Tsushima, working through that. I'm almost, I think I got 20 or so trophies left, maybe 25. Rise of the Ronin. And then I'm supposed to get a review code. I don't even know if I can say when, for Stellar Blade. So I'll be doing that one. I will probably do a review and platinum video, depending on how long it takes me to get through it. Or I may just lump it into one video. But those are the ones I'm working through right now to get the platinums and get that content out.
Awesome. Okay.
What are you working through?
Just right now, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Although I did play the Stellar Blade demo, And there's, I know we talked about this on Crossfire. By the way, I didn't disagree with you on the commentary that you had on the reviews for this game, which we'll get into because I'm seeing some, I've seen some kind of discourse this evening.
Yeah.
Because I was speaking to Lono Reforged Gaming because he had tweeted something about this odd discourse going back and forth regarding this game. I'm like, well, what are you talking about? And then I started doing a little more homework, if you will, and I'm like, oh, okay, this is interesting. So I did play the Stellar Blade demo, but Final Fantasy VII Rebirth right now is really the only thing I'm playing. I just don't want to play.
How many hours
else.
You got?
I am over 40 hours now.
Okay. I hear completionist on that's about 180.
Yeah, I'm not putting 180 in. I just look. I put 400 hours into Baldur's Gate 3. I don't know if I could do 180 in another game. I don't know.
Yeah. Good choices though.
What's that?
I said good choices of games though.
Yeah. No, I mean it's Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is probably going to end up being one of those games that I discuss as a kind of game of the year. For me. So that's where I'm at right now. But but Stellar Blade comes out in about 23 days. Depending on where I'm at with Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, that may be something that gets put on the back burner. There's also Dragon's Dogma 2, which I want to play.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just a lot right now. A lot. So
yeah, I got about 20 hours in Dragon's Dogma.
Oh, nice. Okay. Yeah. I know. Not Forte. Slow-mo Backslap has been playing that as well. I don't know how many hours he has though.
Yeah. I was going to do a review video on it, and I just didn't have time to do enough where I felt comfortable to actually do a review. So yeah, got put on the backlist for now. Yeah.
Logic. What about you? I saw you stream Call of Duty earlier. I didn't catch the live stream, but I didn't know they brought back the airport map.
It wasn't a live stream. Those were game captures from like the 23rd and 24th of March that I just hadn't gotten around to posting yet. Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. Because
Terminal has been back for a while. Yeah. Terminal has been back for a while and is still in the map rotation. I actually played on it tonight.
Okay. Yeah, Terminal was one of my favorite maps from. That was Call of Duty. Which one was that? It was Modern Warfare.
Modern Warfare 2.
Okay. I remember that was kind of controversial at the time. That
the level was, yes, of the single player.
Yeah, and the single player, the campaign. I think they actually did they patch it an option where you didn't have to play that? I don't remember.
I think so.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, I think they did. Based off the airport in like Mumbai, right?
Yeah, because that was
I'm pretty sure I'm pretty sure you could skip it after a while.
Of course, I'm not skipping it.
Yeah.
I wanted to play, so yeah, Logic. So what are you playing right now?
Right now, I'm trying to guess what the average IQ of the gamer must be to extrapolate the meanings that they have off of this chart from the Newzoo annual study that came out.
Oh, I missed that chart. Is that the?
That's the one that's the one you posted in the BRAP chat about. And actually, on E2KG, we talked about it last night. Some of the conclusions are amazingly dumb and. The thread is filled with the typical grifters who are brand aligned and are trying to speak a certain narrative. It's amazing to me. Geez, who would think that if I collected metrics for a 12-month period, that the games that I would find were the most played were the games that were season pass oriented and designed around player participation that spanned a whole year, that they weren't stories with a definitive beginning, middle, and end that started and ended, and that if I took metrics against games across those two different content styles, that I would amazingly come up with the games that were designed around a 12-month or longer living cycle would be the ones that tended to have the more players associated with them over that 12-month span. Let's disregard revenue, by the way, or disregard what's indicated on the NPD charts, and let's just declare that these are the only games that matter, and therefore that's the only thing the industry should be making, and therefore exclusives and AAA games and all those things of this ilk that are not on this particular chart are irrelevant and should no longer be made.
Okay, now I know exactly what you're talking about. You're right. I did share this, and so according to Newzoo, while the games industry grew in 2023, reaching 93.5 billion in revenue, a small number of publishers and developers took up a significant slice of the overall pie. According to the data, just 66 titles accounted for 80% of all play time in 2023. 60% was spent in games that are 6 years or older. The games that are 6 years older are the games that we talked about with season passes, the Fortnites, the Roblox, the Grand Theft Auto 5s, things like that, right? So I did see that there were some people saying that this is why we shouldn't have exclusives anymore. I did see a little bit of that logic, and I'm like, well, you're skating by what we typically see in the sales charts, MPD, Circana. I forget what the European UK charts are called. Is it GfK or something? I forget. But typically those charts and other we have numbers of games, exclusive games that have sold very well in the millions. Spider-Man being an example. What does Spider-Man sell, like 20?
Hogwarts Legacy,
which is the top selling game of last year.
I mean, heck, Starfield charted.
Yeah. Starfield.
Forza Motorsport charted.
Yeah. What else do we have? I feel like I'm missing. Baldur's Gate 3 last year. I mean, so this idea that somehow this means that there isn't demand for AAA games or exclusive games. I think it's a bit exaggerated.
Were we just embroiled in an argument of last month? Last month there was a different chart shown. Right, and when Ascendant Studios, the Immortals of Avium developer, said it's really tough to release a single-player game right now, the dialogue at that time was, oh no, most of the games that were in the top of the MPD charts last year by revenue were single-player games, so that's just a foolish statement. Which was also the wrong conclusion to draw. But my point is that the community, just within a 30-day time span, can voice the exact opposite arguments against each other. It's mind-boggling.
It is mind-boggling because they conveniently forget other data points just to drive a narrative. Actually, we were discussing this before the show. I think Detective C's. I think you said you don't really engage too much on Twitter. I'm like, yeah, I do. I kind of engage a bit more, but. And I don't know if you see these kinds of discussions, these things that Logic's talking about right now, come across your timeline.
Is that about the top games that were played and it had PlayStation and Xbox on? Is that the one? Is that what you're talking about? Like the top list of games played?
Yeah, this one is an article. I think I didn't see this article.
This is the annual study that Newzoo puts out every year that aggregates like a bunch of different statistics. So very similar to the GDC report that I talked about last week, but a little more data driven by market data, not solely by not so much by a survey. And I'm not saying this data is inaccurate. I'm saying this data paints a certain picture, but it's not the picture that everybody's talking about. This is the one that has by PC, PlayStation, Xbox, and Switch the top 10 games by MAU.
Yeah,
right. That were played in 2023.
Yeah, I did see that. For me, I always when I see those charts on there, I look at who put it together, and also like. I think that player, you looked at those games. If it's the one that I'm thinking of, it had like Call of Duty, Roblox, Fortnite, some of those games on there.
Yep.
Those games, to me, are always going to be on there because the barrier of entry into a lot. Now, I mean, Call of Duty, you could argue, you have to buy the actual game, but you can get into, at least I think you used to be able to. You can get into Warzone for free. So I think that when I look at things like that, man, and I look at the experiences I have on each console, because I have all 4 of those in my home. Each one of those I just don't think that those charts like that tell a whole story. It's like a poll that gets run in my opinion. It's just my opinion. You know, I saw that Starfield was on there. I expect that to be on there for Xbox because of the amount of time that you could sink into that game. And then, you know, there's other games like I saw someone make a comment about you know, PlayStation players, they'll buy games but they don't play them. Well, you know, a lot of times on some PlayStation games, you may have, you know, 60, 70 hours for a completionist. You compare that to the amount of time that you can put into a Call of Duty or Roblox, because my kids love those stupid, you know, Roblox. That's not really a fair comparison in my mind, you know? And so I don't take a whole lot of stock from whenever I see those things. I think they put them out probably to drive some narratives in different directions, but I'm just the type of guy, like I said, man, I don't engage in those things on Twitter. Just play what you want to play. I don't give a damn. You know, if you want to play Roblox for 6,000 hours or whatever, it's not hurting me. So I just don't put a lot of stock in those, man. I don't put a lot of stock in those because I think the barrier of entry for a lot of those top games is in a lot of ways free, and those top games are always going to be there. You know, I would imagine that probably next year, if they do that list, Helldivers 2 will probably have a lot of time played on it, you know, and kind of balance out. So, yeah, that's kind of where I'm at whenever I see those.
Yeah, and you bring up some really good points. Like, a lot of these things on this chart are free to play. Fortnite, free to play. The Roblox, free to play. Right? I don't know. I'm not a Roblox player. I assume it's free to play, correct?
Yes.
Oh, it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, Rocket League has gone free to play, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Minecraft is either free to play or like ridiculously cheap to play.
Yeah, I think almost half of that list, I don't have it in front of me, but I want to say over half that list, or at least almost half that list, the barrier of entry is free.
Yeah, or just incredibly good. I mean, definitely not $70. Like Tom Clancy's Rainbow Six Siege, I can't remember. I don't think it's free to play yet, but and it's not a $70 game. I mean, the chat can correct me. I haven't played in a really long time.
I haven't either, but it's incredibly popular, especially among, I guess I'm speaking maybe for my own household, but teenagers. You know, I have a 14-year-old, and him and his buddies are hooked, and they're always playing in tournaments and doing all those things. So I don't know what the barrier of entry is on that now, but I think the top ones on that list are probably going to rotate in that, you know, same cycle year after year because of that barrier of entry. If I remember correctly, Call of Duty was kind of clustered together with Warzone.
It was,
and
yeah.
Call of Duty.
Yeah,
okay.
which is Warzone is free to play. I mean, Apex Legends, Fall Guys. I can't. Again, some of these I haven't played in a very long time. I can't remember if I think Apex Legends is free to play. Is that right?
Apex is free. Yeah, but what's interesting though is I'm looking at this list right now. There are games on this list that are pay to play games.
That are paid, that are AAA, that are exclusive.
Yes,
Again,
yeah.
Starfield is on this list at number 8.
Yeah, I was about to say that. Yeah, so
on the Xbox list, so why are these people running around again? Because they're trying to dovetail with the Xbox narrative. It is entire. I'm looking. Now I'm looking at the chart by revenue. Right. Let's talk about single player games, AAA games, exclusive games. Hogwarts Legacy is number 1. Now these are the U.S. charts, right? But again, 99% of the people commenting on this stuff are U.S. people, right, on Twitter. Hogwarts Legacy in at number 1. I'll call Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3. Yes, it's multiplayer, but that's a paid $70 game, right? Madden NFL 24, not single player, but a paid game. Marvel Spider-Man 2, single player, AAA, exclusive. Legend of Zelda, Tears of the Kingdom, right? Checks all 3 of those blocks. Diablo 4, predominantly single player, right? AAA, exclusive. Yes, you can play co-op or whatever, but you got to pay to get in. Up until this month, now it's in Game Pass. Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2. In at number 7, that's a game that's a year old. People are still paying $70 for that game because the blasted thing isn't on sale, right? Mortal Kombat 1, Star Wars Jedi Survivor, EA Sports FC 24, paid game. Starfield, Super Mario Brothers Wonder, Resident Evil 4, MLB The Show 23, paid game. Dead Island 2, Final Fantasy 16, Street Fighter 6. Like, all of these things are paid AAA, many of them exclusive. You know, yes, you can play multiplayer in a lot of them, but again, none of these are free to play. Right now, granted, There's probably revenue data that isn't submitted. Like, I don't know that Epic doesn't report on how much money they're making on Fortnite. Yes, I get that. But the point is that with these games that are on this list, we've talked about this on the show many, many times before. The market is only going to support so many Fortnites, Warzones, and Apex Legends. And if you launch something that competes against those three, your likelihood of survival is incredibly low. It's either incredibly low or you're going to be making significantly less revenue than the games that are on the other chart that I just read off. That is the choice people are making. It's a three-pronged choice. Am I going to put the time, money, effort, engineering, labor, effort, dollars, investment to try and pull players away from Fortnite, Warzone, and Apex Legends and launch that type of game? Or am I going to go after a game that, yes, it's going to have high MAU, but it's going to be right, and also ran who's nibbling at this other 35% of the revenue in the market because all the bigs are sucking up the 65%? Or am I going to invest my money in a AAA single-player game that's exclusive to my platform and therefore has a captive audience where I'm likely to get some traction? We need to stop dispensing with this notion that there are business models and investment objectives that are completely irrelevant just because one chart says a certain thing, and then you take it and spin it and skew it in a way that you damn well know that you are doing irresponsibly and mispresenting information.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're spreading disinformation. I mean, but let me ask you something, gentlemen. Doesn't that kind of skate by the idea or acknowledging that there's this market stratification within gaming, that you have a segment of gamers that are going to play because, like you said, Detective Seeds, it's a very low barrier of entry, free to play, right? There's that.
Well, it also skates by the notion that not every development studio wants to work on that.
Well, yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Because it's like working in a Nike tennis shoe factory. Sorry to put it that way.
I mean,
right, but it's like working in a sweatshop.
Yeah. Right,
and not everybody wants to do the grind. Isn't that what Naughty Dog talked about? Right, they didn't want to become that type of studio because it would mean hyper focusing on the operational mode of software development, of constantly supporting a thing that was living, instead of and giving up, right, doing those single player story driven experiences where there's a lot of creative craft behind it. But these people at these studios who are doing these types of games, like there's no writers there. right, and that's a huge part of the creative endeavor, is that intermix and that convergence of the writing staff working with the game and telling a story. And lots of people don't want to work in the Nike sweatshop.
I think it's just a very, I mean, I look at it from I guess I try to look at things from a business perspective, and it's a very niche. It strikes me as a very niche market that a lot of people try to. Obviously, live service, if you do it right, you can make a lot of money. I mean, we've seen that from some of these games and some of these studios, and I almost equate it to like creators on YouTube. If they see someone doing some videos or maybe a topic's hot, they try to jump in that iron, and they don't have that same success because maybe they don't present facts in a certain way where people watch their video, or they don't get into a good algorithm, whatever the case might be. I think that those key players that are already there, they're going to exist there because that's what they're very good at. That's what they're known for. I do think somewhere, this is just my opinion, I do think somewhere there is probably a studio that is making a game that will compete with some of these games that we're seeing, and we haven't seen it come out yet. I do think that, whether it be a looter shooter or whatever the case might be, Destiny 2's Destiny and as a whole has had a pretty long lifespan of being a looter shooter. And I just think that studios, when the suits get involved and they try to make them do something that they're not very good at, we end up with, frankly, messes.
And see, I just want to. I mean, so we have seen two of those, right? We've seen Helldivers and we've seen Power World. But the thing is that like we don't know how that plays out right now. We don't know if those are hot topics for the beginning of the year. And by the time we slide into kind of the summer of E3, right, faux E3, right, Summer Games Fest, and all the buzz and the hoopla starts about there, we don't know that those games are, aren't going to be forgotten if they were winter flashes in the pan that grabbed people's attention because it was kind of a soft market.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to PAL World, the one thing I would argue there is how many copies they end up selling. I mean, I know that they had some Game Pass, but I know that they had quite a few copies sold on the PC front. I don't know the exact number, but I would expect that they are able to take that money and invest that into probably another game that they can make. So I do think that some of the flashes in the pan, so to speak, that can be good and bad. But speaking from a consumer side, I would like to see less of those. That's my opinion. Maybe not everyone shares that, but I would like to see less of those and more of the studios that do, kind of buckle down and create these experiences, if you will. Like I said earlier, Ghost of Tsushima is probably one of my favorite games I've played in years. And I personally, and maybe it's just the age that I'm at now, I enjoy those experiences. I enjoy not just the graphical improvements that we can have on these, some of the next generation hardware, but the performance, but the storytelling. And so I think that barrier of entry for some of those games that we talked about is very low. It speaks to some of the differences in the generation of players nowadays. But I do hope that games studios kind of stay the course and make those good games that a lot of us enjoy and not look for those flash in the pans like you said. But I think that we're still going to have them. You're still going to have them hit and see what they do with it.
No, those are great points here, gentlemen. I do want to move on to unless you have one more thing to say about this topic.
So Power World is selling for $30 a pop on Xbox. It's selling for about the same on PC. They've sold 25 million copies.
Yeah.
And so, theoretically they should wind up in a chart, but I didn't see, but they're not, and I don't know if they're maybe not reporting data, but they're not on the MPD chart for February. So I'm not sure why, but so it'll be interesting to see how it comes out, right? It's going to be a matter of, we talk about this all the time. You can get a lot of customers, but the question is, are they paying customers, and is that ARPU up there? So we'll see how that goes. I guess the rest of the year.
It'd be interesting to see what their ROI is. I don't know what their studio investment costs were in that game. If they sold 25 million at, let's say the barrier entry is $30 a pop. I mean, that could be a pretty decent pop for a studio that has an investment bag of,
yeah,
whatever the case might be. You'd have to see what that ROI is and go from there. But they normally don't release that.
And their server costs they've mentioned are burning like $500K a month.
Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, it's all that stuff's going to happen. But my point is, just like BRAP said, I think it's what seems amazingly turgid and blockheaded to me is all of the people on Twitter and YouTube engaged in gaming politics, trying to wave their hand and characterize the market. Like, if there's anything that we've learned about the video game market for the last 50 years, for people who have actually been studying it and people who actually decompose it into the various subject matters that it crosses over, instead of the number of people on Twitter who are trying to be Maury Povich, Geraldo Rivera, Jerry Springer, right, and grotesquely oversimplify things. The one thing that should have been learned is that the video game market is an incredibly complex beast. There's an incredible number of consumers, and there's an incredibly wide variance of taste and what people want. And so no one who is anywhere near remotely credible should ever be asserting. If you see someone who's supposedly a citizen journalist, whatever, YouTube or whatever, trying to paint the entire gaming industry, even the PC and console segment, with a single solid colored brush and say, here it is, this is it. This is the 5-word soundbite that defines the industry. Then that should be an immediate litmus test that person either A, doesn't know what they're talking about, B, is doing a work, right? And C, is speaking a narrative. Right? The industry is way complex. But the good thing and the great thing about gaming right now is that there's tons of different stuff to appeal to tons of different types of players. And there's tons of different business models to go along with that, so that you can subscribe, buy, free to play, microtransaction your way to your heart's content, right? Not all of those models I agree with. You can do Xbox All Access and go get your Xbox for free and pay $30 a month and get Game Pass, right? Incredibly low barrier to entry. But I mean, what we should be focused on, what the dialogue really should be, is that influencers should not be trying to take any one of those things off the table. No one should be having a voice track that encourages and incentivizes other gamers to feel like, well, we should just take one of these things and just take them off the table, right? And F the rest of the gamers who actually enjoy consuming that content or enjoy consuming in that manner, right? And just make them fall in line with the rest of us. Like, what a just incredibly disingenuous, disgusting, like self-centered like message to be going out and conveying to other gamers.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree, Logic. I don't disagree, and I think it's would you say it's a work? I think a lot of it's a work too, based on what a particular Xbox influencer said recently. Kind of admitted what we've been saying on the show for quite some time now. But yeah, I don't disagree with you. And I think that's the unfortunate part about the coverage from influencers around gaming, that it's a very complex, nuanced conversation that just isn't happening for some reason. And people are taking things, like you said, off the table to drive specific narratives or to make their platform look good. And I would challenge those individuals. I would even say, not challenge per se, but I would say that those individuals probably aren't really fans of gaming. So
one thing that is absolutely certain that you can definitely go by is, if there's no money to be made in a thing, the industry will stop making it. Well, the industry stopped making real-time strategy games for a while and got back to it. The industry stopped making vehicle sims for a while and got back to it. But during the time that it stopped making them, because it felt like nobody cared, Mad Catz went out of business. Cytec went out of business. I mean, they were bought, right, they were consumed by larger people. Like, those genres just kind of went off the face of the map. Point and click adventure games went off the face of the map for a while. AA games, studios, like big, like platform owners, used to focus on making them. They don't.
THQ,
PlayStation, yeah, but THQ went bankrupt, right? Because people weren't buying them.
Well, that's Logic, but that's what we've been saying on the show. Like, if there wasn't money to be made in these things, they wouldn't be doing it. They wouldn't be spending $200 million.
Look at the money PlayStation has invested, right, in making single player cinematic experience. Why? Because it's a product differentiator. Why? Because that's where you go to get that type of content. Why? Because it allowed them to go to the market leader to the tune of $26 billion. To which extent they were not touched, right? Until we allowed an acquisition to go through and took the top 10 people who consume 65% of the revenue in the market to go down to the top 9. And that was the only way that Xbox was able to catch up, despite, right, being backed by a multi-trillion-dollar venture capital company, essentially.
Yeah.
So, I mean, these are the facts of the case that people should be focused on and people should be understanding, right? And not to say that Microsoft wasn't in the game; they were certainly in the game, right? Even the industry has long supported a number 1 and number 2 and number 3, and often the most interesting battle has been between number 2 and number 3, because number 1, it's kind of like in Formula 1, has gotten off to a big lead and then like is uncatchable, right? But again, the fantasy stories that get made up, you know, despite what the data indicates, is just amazing sometimes.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree. The other thing I was going to say is that the one thing that that kind of I saw this today too. I just want to mention this point because I feel like this happens a lot with gamers. Someone said today, "Oh, not every game needs to be 100 hours. It'd be great if we only got games that were like 6 to 10 hours." And it's like we have those games, but people don't buy them. So it's like people forget that the developers are reacting to the demand signal that consumers are giving them. And that's part of the conversation that's missing too. So I do want to move on though, gentlemen. Great points across the board, by the way. I do want to move on to Stellar Blade. I played the demo. And Detective Seeds, I know earlier in the show you mentioned that you were going to be reviewing the game. Did you play the demo?
I did. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I played the demo.
So what were your impressions of the demo?
It's smooth in terms of the performance. I have when it comes to 1440p and 60, I primarily need to play on 60 or I get really bad migraines, really bad headaches from having a head injury. And so I had no visible dips that I could see. It performed extremely well on its performance. I think the one thing that some players that were kind of voicing, hey, it seems slow or the combat's not as fast as I want. If you looked at the skill tree that opens up in the game, they almost kind of do that on purpose to get you to grind the game because there are unlocks that you get to do that widen that parry window that you have. Because when you first start, that parry window is pretty tight.
It's really tight. Like I was like, I dodged that. Like how did I not?
It's tighter than her outfit, to be honest with you. So,
which we'll talk about here in a sec too.
Yeah, but going into it, I wasn't sure exactly like how I would like it because of being a Souls player. I do like Souls games. And I think if you keep it on the regular difficulty, you're going to get absolutely shredded if you don't play that game in a strategic way where you're learning the boss mechanics and you're just learning how to flow through the combat. Yeah. Because if you go in there and you try to take on some of those fights head on, even just in the demo, I mean, you're going to get your ass whooped. And so, but I also think, and I know this got brought up on Crossfire about having those two difficulty settings. I think they were smart in doing that. And the reason I say that is I'm not someone who subscribes to wanting a Souls game to have an easy mode. I'm not. I'm kind of protective of it, I guess. But I think it was very smart of them because you may have a barrier of entry where a lot of players want to play this game, which I do think this game is probably going to do pretty well. In terms of purchases, it allows players to come in and have that experience that isn't as brutal as what maybe you or I want. I think that they were pretty smart in doing that and testing it and putting that into the game to see, I actually think that it will sell more copies because of that. Take out everything else about the game. I think that because it has those two barrier of entries into it where players can go one path of a more hardcore experience and utilizing the skills, and then you have the other path that I still think is going to be kind of difficult, but it will open it up for more players to want to jump in and play it. I think that was pretty smart of them to do and kind of see how that functions, and also do other studios who do have that higher barrier of entry for completion, if they pay attention and they look to see how this game performs by doing that. I would be interested to see if other studios look at that. But I do think I said it on Crossfire. I'll give ballpark because I'm going to be reviewing it. I don't want to give a score without playing it. I think it'll probably land somewhere in the low 80s. I think you're going to have some people take some points off, unfortunately, for certain things that I don't think points should be taken off for, but that's kind of where I stand on that issue for now. But I thought it was good. I thought the demo was awesome. I enjoyed it. Music's great. Combat's awesome. I mean, dude, some of those kills, some of the cinematic kills. What's the boss with the Saul face, whatever you want to call it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, just brutal kills on some. It was awesome.
Pretty brutal.
So,
yeah,
I enjoyed it, man.
Yeah, by the way, Aircuts for the Win has a great video on the demo. I encourage everyone to check out Aircuts for the Win. She's a huge Souls fan, plays a lot of Souls games, plays a lot of Souls-like games. She had a great video on the Stellar Blade demo. Now, the game kind of gives me a little bit, and I agree with Erica on this too, because she mentioned this as well, but the game does give me a little bit of Sekiro vibes in terms of the parry system in that game and kind of the rhythm, the timing in Sekiro. But I did feel like it was like the player movement, her movement, and just it to me at least, it just felt a little slow. But to your point, when you start opening up, and I think this is what we're going to see after this game releases retail, that once you start investing in that skill tree, and I think it's done on purpose. I think they, like you talked about, that small parry, that small parry window, it does open up a bit. There's actually that skill set that gives you the option to increase the parry time or increase the window to the parry or whatever it is. But I noticed that once you start getting the timing down and the rhythm, you start nailing those like combinations or those moves. There's that, and you get, and in that boss battle you're talking about, you get like the yellow, like illumination, blue illumination, like it's almost like I don't know, it's like a color signal, I guess. Basically telling you what to do, more or less. Like you need to parry here, you need to sidestep or dodge. There's that one move, the one skill where you can actually teleport behind the enemy. Once your sword goes blue. And I get the sense that once you start opening up that skill tree, that the combat's probably going to pick up a bit in terms of the speed, the movement, right? Because it seems like you're probably going to be able to chain certain moves together.
I think so too.
Yeah, and that's intriguing to me. Go ahead.
And the dev, I mean, a lot of people in chat are saying it's not a Souls game. One of the devs on the game said they took a lot of inspiration on the combat from Souls games, that they wanted to take in that Sekiro vibe of the combat and how crisp it was and the tightness of those parry windows. So it's not a Souls game, but it gives out those inspirations. But I think one of the problems that we're going to see, you saw it on the demo. In some cases, a lot of people just playing the very opening of the game and saying, combat's too slow, it's not any good. Combat's too slow, it's not any good. It's like, if you keep playing, you will see the purpose of starting you out in the game, of having those deficiencies, if you will, and being able to scale up through the skill tree to become a better fighter. And so I hope that players, when they do dive into the game, especially people who are going to be reviewing it, do the proper due diligence of going through and upgrading the skill tree, rather than just putting the game on easy or the easier mode and trying to get through it to do their review. I could see that being a problem too.
Yeah, I didn't do story mode. I was like, no, I'm playing regular mode. But I did get the sense, so when I started unlocking, again, some of the moves in the skill tree, that I could see, I could see this, the combat being a little more fluid, and some of the moves, some of the, like you said, kills being a little more visceral, because there was one where I think I don't know what I did. I parried, did something, and next thing you know, like I'm like basically like flaying this boss, like I somehow managed to get under him, and but I don't disagree with you in terms of where this game, from a review perspective, might land. I think, 80s. I think that, unfortunately, it's probably going to get paired to a Souls game. and I feel like that's a high bar. I don't think it's a fair comparison per se. It's not a Dark Souls game, but it reminds you of Sekiro a bit with the timing, the pairing, and stuff. But we'll get to the topic regarding the protagonist's appearance. There seems to be some two camps here. That's characters overly sexualized, and that and then there's the camp that's like, we want we people that are like, hey, she looks great, and we had people on the BRAP rant this past Friday who are like, I only want to play characters that are attractive, which to me is just odd. I don't ever approach video games in that way. Like, I'm never like, I have to have attractive characters in a game. And even playing this game, like, obviously, the running joke was when we saw the reveal of Stellar Blade that people were, Stellar Yams, okay, haha, I get it. And that's there. You could see those that.
Yeah,
but it's not a focal point for me though.
Me either. I mean, I played Grand Theft Auto 5 as Trevor, and that guy looks like he got, face fucked by a topographical map of Utah. So I don't care how somebody looks in a video game, but it has become like this focal point, and people actually care about it. I'm like, dude, I don't care what you do in your spare time or what you look at, what your viewing pleasures are. I don't care. The one thing I will say about it is this. People gave some hate on Aloy during the Horizon, saying, oh, she looks, bigger in this. The fact is, this character is actually a real person that did the mocap.
Korean model. I forget her name. Yeah.
Yeah. And she is, I mean, I'm sure they, obviously did some things to scale certain areas, but she's built pretty well. And so I think that if people are going to slam that type of content in the game, she took the role. She knew what this role was going to be. She wanted to do the role. And so you have two sides of the camp here that are, hey, this is over-sexualized, so on and so forth. If you think that, don't play it. I'm in that camp. If you don't like something, don't play it. Don't watch it.
I don't disagree with you, Detective C's. I think it's, if you don't like it, don't play it. I do have to get the super chat, by the way.
Yeah.
Huge super chat. And a big thank you to Ghost in the Garage with the $100 super chat. Says, what's up, Brap in chat? Thank you so much for that super chat. That is huge. Much love, much appreciation for that. Thank you. Please do me a favor. We have about 188 people watching. Hit that like button if you haven't done so already. Again, helps out the channel. But I'm in that camp too, Detective C. It's like we had somebody in the chat this last Friday, the BRAP rant, who was like, I don't. They were pitching a fit about the character model and the upcoming Fable reboot, and I'm like, I don't care. Like I don't have this. Like I don't have this idea. Like in my mind, I'm not like I need to have attractive female protagonists in a game. Or characters. Yeah. Like I don't care. To me, it's about the gameplay, the mechanics, the story. Like the appearance of a character. That is on the bottom of the list for me. And so I just don't understand. I truly don't understand the perspective. I'm like, if you desire looking at a beautiful person, go play another game that offers you that experience.
I mean, I've just come to the conclusion that some people just like to complain about stuff.
Well, I was going to, especially in video games.
Especially video games. Video game, like to me, man, video games used to be so uniting, and it is when you're not on Twitter. If I didn't do content creation, I wouldn't be on Twitter. And the only reason I'm on there is just, kind of post and go and like I said, I don't really get into this stuff, but once you get outside that atmosphere, there's really not a whole lot of bickering and all these different factions, if you will. of comparison. It's like, people deal in falsehoods so much that when it comes to something like this, a video game that's actually runs well, we haven't gotten our hands on the full product yet, but runs well. Combat was fun. The music the music was awesome.
Yeah, I'd say the music's really good. Yeah.
And it's like, it's almost like every single game that comes out, into what Game Logic was saying, it's like there's narratives that are pushed. If it comes out and it's an Xbox game, the hardcore Sony side is going to push out a certain narrative against the Xbox game, and then vice versa. It goes on both sides, So for me, when it comes to this topic, like, most people have watched TV shows, most people have watched movies. I can't think of anything right now in our world that is not hypersexualized or shows off some type. I mean, you can't go anywhere without seeing a commercial, or anything. You get on your phone and it's on there. You scroll through Twitter and there's more, cam girls and stuff on there than you know what to do with. So it's just, I honestly think it's kind of blown out of proportion by certain individuals. I don't care. That's my take on it. I'm going to play it. I'm going to give my feedback on it. That does not involve what she looks like. And that's my overall take on it. Is I don't care what the character looks like in that sense. I'm not going to judge them based off of how they appear in a game. And say, I'm not going to play with this person because they're not attractive. I'm not going to play with this person because it's a female. I don't care. I just want to play the game. Make the game. Let me play it. And, you guys can go complain about something if you want to, but I'm going to enjoy the game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, it's just, I don't disagree. It's just really odd to me that there are people and that people that have to either have that attractive character or feel like, okay, this character is over sexualized. And I don't look at it that way. I don't look at the characters like that. Again, I don't disagree with you, Detective C's. If it's something you don't like, just don't play it. There's other games out there. There's other games out there. Tons. I had someone say, "Oh, well," I think one of the guys in the chat, Logic, who I was going back and forth with on Friday, and said, "Well, imagine if Lara Croft was ugly." I'm like, okay, but imagine if it was still a good game. Like the gameplay was still the gameplay mechanics were good, great story. Would it have changed the game, the enjoyment of the game? Maybe for some, maybe for others not.
And that's the thing. Like you get into subjective. What's ugly? One person's trash is another man's treasure, I think is how the saying goes. And so I just think that whenever you get into that of looking at the character and basically saying, I'm not going to play or I don't want to play as this character because of the way that they look, I just think that's a slippery slope, man. If that's the case and that's the road that people go down, that's not a road that I want to travel on with people. I just want to play the game, experience it, play the narrative. I don't care what the character looks like. I'm not sitting there staring at her, I'm thinking not about a video game character. Yeah. Sorry, bro. I get out of your mom's basement if that's the thing. I don't know what to tell you, man. Like, go out and find a girlfriend.
Yeah. No, and it's just, I think you said this on Crossfire last week. I think this game will probably be there'll probably be some reviews that are going to have issues with the protagonist, her appearance in the game.
I stand by that 100%.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. I could see that.
Yeah, I think, couple. I don't think it'll be overwhelming, but I do think there'll be a couple that state, or maybe not even state it in their review, but take points off and then go, "That was great. It was a great game." But then it's you give it a low score. So, but I do think that will probably factor in some reviews, and we may even see feedback on it. I don't know. Depends how open they want to be about it.
Yeah. I'm going to grab the super chat from Alfonso Carter. $2 super chat. Thank you, Alfonso. Says, but you have IGM, or I said IGN condemning the game. There was something with IGN France. I didn't catch that, though. I think Capono 5150 in the chat had mentioned something about IGN France, but I did not catch that, Alfonso Carter.
I looked at that, and from my understanding, the IGN France is actually not even affiliated with the actual IGN. So I don't know how that works under what umbrella, but it's apparently owned and affiliated with a completely different entity than the IGN that we have here in the West. So,
okay,
take that for what you want. But apparently that was kind of put out there.
Yeah. Okay. So Capone's saying IGN France said the developer has never seen a real woman. Wow. That's, yeah. Matt Joe says having cute girls in video games marketing 101. If you put ugly chicks in a fantasy sci-fi game, you're out of your mind. Again, Matt Joe, I mean, marketing one. I mean, like, okay. I mean,
well, the director must have saw a real woman when she was doing mocap because it's a real chick.
Yeah, I mean, I played Starfield, and I can't say Sarah was very attractive. I guess but it wasn't something that was on my mind. Like I
divorced her. She got on my nerves.
Yeah, that Sarah was a very dry character. I didn't really care. Like I think it's just weird to me. Like this, you have if the thing with Alloy, it was so weird. Like who the fuck cares? Oh, she looks heavier than the who cares?
She should. Time passed, man. She's older. People gain weight. I don't look like I did, whenever I was in my early 20s. Who cares?
Yeah, I don't give a fuck. Like,
yeah,
I don't
care.
Yeah. Anyhow, yeah. That's yeah. So it's gonna be interesting when the
punch
reviews come
harder.
out. Yeah. What's that?
She's gonna punch harder. Got a little bit more strength behind that punch.
Yeah. Yeah. So no, it's gonna be interesting to see the reviews. So I one of the reasons I wanted to have you on this week is because the demo had come out on Friday, the day after we did Crossfire, and you had said something that really kind of was like, yeah, I could see that happening with regards to the game being docked by some websites based on the appearance of the protagonist. So,
well, I mean, the reason I say that is I looked at all these other games that have come out. Right, look at Hogwarts. People dock that because of the writer. There are issues with J.K. Rowling. She wasn't anywhere in the game. She, to my understanding, had no affiliation, and they took off points because of that. If you're going to take off points on that game, and there's obviously some others that they've done things. That's why I personally, man, I don't pay attention to the reviews from outlets. A lot of these guys have turned into bloggers and basically influencers that work for these companies. So that's why I'm pretty confident in saying that I think at least a couple of them will probably lower their score a little bit because of that.
Yeah, again, I don't disagree. So the game comes out April 26th, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, 26th. I'm going to assume probably embargo will be 24th. I'd say April 23rd, 24th, somewhere in that ballpark. That's normally how they've been running because PlayStation's the one giving out the codes. So they're generally 2 to 3 days. I think Rise of the Ronin, our embargo was the day before at noon. So I would say probably 24th. You'll probably see reviews start coming out.
Okay. And you are you'll be getting a review copy shortly then. Okay.
Yeah, Rise of the Ronin, It varies, man. It varies on the game, and I don't know if it's how they pick. Like, I've been getting PlayStation review codes now for almost a year, and every game is different. So, Spider-Man 2, I think I had it almost a week before, maybe. So each one's different. Rise of the Ronin was about a week, 6 to 7 days before embargo. So, but sometimes they cut it close. Sometimes they're like, "Hey, here you go," and it's 3 days. So, it really just depends. But I do think that this one, based off kind of what we've heard the length might be, I would say probably get review codes the week of the 15th. Be my guess. If I had to take a stab at it.
Yeah. Detective C's, how are you on time? I know we only have you for
keep
limited
going.
time.
You can keep going. Yeah, we're good.
All right,
hard
perfect.
style.
Right.
Yeah, we're good.
All right, so I do want to pivot here to an article in Logic. We briefly, I think, discussed this article that came out on I think it was last Thursday or Friday by VGC. It was an op-ed about Phil Spencer, and Phil Spencer has been now the head of Xbox for 10 years now. Nathan Brown wrote an op-ed about Phil Spencer, and is he really the savior of Xbox, or is he going to be remembered as the man who killed it? And there's been a lot of dialogue, conversation around this particular article, Phil Spencer's tenure in the 10 years there, and actually today, William D'Angelo of VG Charts, as they do, they release their estimates of the Xbox Series X and S sales. And after 40 months, they are estimating that the Xbox S and S consoles are an estimated 2.32 million units behind the Xbox One. Now, I'll say this: like I thought this was going to be a more competitive generation for Xbox than the Xbox One generation. I didn't even think that, because with the cheaper SKU of the Xbox Series S at $300, and then the high end, the most powerful console on the market, the Series X, and really the tremendous value proposition of Game Pass, I thought, well, wow, they're going to be very competitive. That just didn't happen. And in fact, it seems like, based on VG Charts, that they're trending behind what is arguably their worst console generation, which doesn't surprise me, just given we talked about this a couple weeks ago on this show. In Europe, they saw a 47% decline year over year in hardware sales of the Xbox Series consoles. Amy Hood's been on record saying, yeah, there's going to be a decline in hardware sales. So none of this surprises me. But this article in particular is interesting because I was thinking about it this weekend. I was like, I think Phil Spencer's done some good things for the Xbox. If you're to believe some of the stories that he may have said, he may have saved Xbox, that perhaps Microsoft was going to move on from the platform. Didn't really see the value in continuing the business as it is. But now, like, this whole pivot recently and this dangling of the carrot. And Logic, you and I've talked about this, where and I think we both agree here. The thing that's really interesting with Phil is that he seems to be dangling this carrot of what the future might look like. And it's almost, I think you said this, Logic, I think that it's almost like it's a way to divert the attention away from how the platform's actually doing and from actually consumers looking at the brand and holding their feet to the fire.
Yeah, I mean, I said that. I do want to clarify that was, I mean, just a part of a gag, right? Like I don't really. I mean, you know, whether I guess what I would say is whether they or whether that's actually like a deliberate like PR strategy. I don't know. But what I do know is that is what I will say is that is the way the dialogue goes, right? Which just kind of points to, right, my constant confusion with, you know, a lot of the gaming discussion and discourse on Twitter. Like I don't, you know, like we saw the clip posted, you know, about Mag and Colt, and it was just kind of funny, you know, a little serendipitous in the, you know, the timing in which it dropped, because I was literally thinking about that very thing this morning, which is the same thing that happened last year, right before Redfall came out. Like my spidey sense went off in late March and April, and I said, hey, I'm looking at my watch, and, you know, last year it was like the 12-month plan was promulgated in June. Like, and here we are, right in the closing 2 or 3 months, and like there's tons of these games that haven't been delivered. Like, what's going on? And this was, you know, shortly when I was thinking that was shortly before, right, the delays of Forza and Starfield were announced. And this year is much the same way. You know, Matt Booty said at the business update, you know, last month that there were 10 major releases planned for 2024. And we have various, you know, I'll refer to them as pundits, right, who have asserted, you know, hey, there's no point in joining in on the doom and gloom, you know, for Xbox. They've already told you what you're getting in 2024. And I'm like, here we are, March 3rd. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, we were told we were getting 10 major releases this year. And as of right now, there's no sign of them. You know, we have a release date for one of those. You know, one is in early access, whatever that means. I mean, the one that I'm thoroughly not interested in playing. I'm not really interested in playing the other one that has a delivery date of May either. But, you know, supposedly there are 8 others, and I'm like, okay, you know, we're now at the point where there's 8 months to go, and I know that these games are not dropping, you know, one per month, and I know that we're not getting another like serious real update until the June showcase. So, you know, where are these 8 games, you know, that are supposedly major releases that are coming to the platform this year? So I mean, but that's not the topic of discussion, right? The topic of discussion is exclusive bad, AAA games bad, industry's not growing based on an extrapolated data point across 2 years in the post-pandemic period. You know, strategy, we're pivoting this business model, that business model, every screen's an Xbox, like literally, like, what the F? like, why is there this hyper focus on all of these things other than what games are being delivered? 2023 was supposed to be the biggest year for the platform. It was the year in which Starfield and Forza were both released. And despite those two powerhouse of games coming out, they landed with flat acceptance, right, by the Steam community on PC. They are both ill-regarded, right, by the Steam community. And they didn't move the needle on Game Pass subscriptions, despite assertions otherwise, right? Because Sarah Bond came out and told us what the number was. And we know that 12 million of that number are people who were flipped from games with gold. So that means that the number hasn't moved since January of 2022. So, you know, it's this constant, you know, here's what's coming. It's, you know, the whole business update was about the future of Xbox, and I'm like, but it's never about the now, and it's never what's been delivered. And people will come here, and people will, you know, hear what we say on Twitter or whatever, and they'll say, you know, doom and gloom. You know, you guys just hate Xbox. I'm like, no, it's that you guys are hyper focused on talking about what's coming for Xbox, and I'm sorry, that's not a rubric.
But Logic, that's my issue. Since I've been on, when we had Tim on a couple weeks ago, since I've been on the Twitter platform and as a content creator for the last 9 years, that's always been the conversation by the Xbox camp. Not everyone in the Xbox camp. I don't want to generalize, put everyone in that same that same and put everyone in that same box. But a lot of the Xbox content creators, influencers that lean more Xbox, that has always been the conversation, the talking point, the future. It was wait till DirectX 12, wait till they free up more ESRAM, wait till they get rid of the Kinect, wait till more tools come. Oh, Game Pass. They announced Game Pass. Game Pass is going to put PlayStation out of business. Game Pass is the future. Oh, the Series S. Well, wait till little Johnny walks into Best Buy and he's with his mom and he sees a Series S for $300 and then he sees Game Pass, the best deal in gaming. Oh, it's going to be amazing. None of those things ever happened or played out the way that a lot of these people thought they would play out. And it's the same thing again today. This is why I said dangling the carrot. And actually, Logic, I do think this is part of their marketing plan. I think it's done on purpose because I think it distracts consumers or Xbox consumers, not all, but some, from actually holding them accountable and actually demanding deliverables today. So I don't think this is, and so I had this back and forth with Phil at the helm over the last 10 years. I think he's done some really good things, but I think the constant pivoting and just the messaging, and more recently, and this, we want Xbox fans to feel like first class citizens, and then pulling the rug onto that. I mean, it's just.
Well, remember, this was the indictment at the beginning of Gen 8, right? With the Xbox One. And yes, I know, and I didn't necessarily agree with the assessment at the time, because we did have a change in leadership, right, from Matrick to Spencer. But Spencer took over in 2014. So I can't remember exactly, but I think, from the dates I collated and going back over there, I thought Matrick made it in my head. I thought Matrick was ousted before the launch, but when I go back and look at the writings and reportings at the time, it seems like he was there through the launch, and that Phil took over in 2014. But regardless, one of the indictments at the time was the notion that they had said all these things about what the Xbox One was. It was the focus on the living room. It was the focus on connectivity and always connected, and all those things. Which in hindsight, a lot of people have come back and said, well, they were right. They were just ahead of their time. But by the same token, right, there were things that were part of that voice check that they walked back. And one of the indictments at the time was that, right, wrong, or indifferent, right? Even if the walked back message is the one that resonated with fans more, the indictment was that it was indicative of this fishtailing, right, and this wishy-washiness, and this lack of certainty and commitment to whatever the next thing is. And this is the trend that, to me, right, is indicated by constantly shifting the KPI and the OKR of what the business is going after, right? When it no longer became prudent to report revenue and hardware sales numbers, then then we started talking about games with gold subscribers, right? That was somehow indicative of success, the number of attach rate of the service to the console, and the fact that notionally, theoretically, it was better than PlayStation's. And then it became reporting, Game Pass subscription numbers when that launched. And then it became, and now it's reporting MAU. Right? And it just seems like if this were a political campaign, which, if you look at Twitter, that you would think that that's what it was, that you would think that somebody was running for office. If this were a political campaign, what we would be decrying is that, this constant flip-flopping, because a few years ago, I mean, we've seen it painted on Twitter, right? Exclusives were good. They were good for the platform. Why would we spend $7 billion to go after Bethesda if we weren't going to make something exclusive? When the outcry came about them taking those games exclusives, it was I said it was going to be on a case by case basis. Now all of a sudden in the post-pandemic period, based on 2 years of data, not based on 10 years, because normally most of us who deal with numbers and data, particularly of the financial type, we tend to look at trends right over a longer time period than 2 years. But we seem to be hyper focused around 2 data points from 2022 and 2023, and that is pulling the wool over everyone's eyes, right? Who's buying into it? Just don't get, like, it's flabbergasting to me how the PR voice track is like just complete obfuscation and distraction, and no one questions it. It's weird.
But here's the thing, Logic. We have tangible data points that show us that the strategy he's implemented has not worked. It's not working.
Yeah.
Hardware sales, Game Pass subscription numbers, like people, revenue's up. Well, yeah, because they acquired Activision. If you want to chalk it up for a win, I guess that's a win for him. But
because if you look at the metric when they were toe to toe with relatively the same number of studios, right? PlayStation had an $8-9 billion lead.
Exactly.
I think it comes down to games.
Yeah. Go ahead, Detective C. I was going to go to here in a second, Detective C. I know we've kind of
no. You guys are totally good. I just think that games move console sales. Games move people to go play on certain platforms, and I think that this notion. First off, I want to say this. I think that Xbox is one of their main problems with games coming out might be the Series S. You're asking your developers to develop for 2 different consoles, one that is significantly lower in performance than the other. And so I don't care about, games that are really old being able to run on, at 60 FPS. They should be able to if they're that old. But I think that that's one of the problems. Another problem is their contractual obligations with employees. I know we talked about that earlier, coming in and out. You come in during the middle of a project, and then after 18 months, let's say a development cycle's 4 to 5 years on a project, 18 months, at a year and a half into a 5-year project, that's a revolving door of talent coming in and out, in and out, in and out. And I just don't think that translates very well to game development. It might in some locations, such as software development, but not game development. I just don't think that translates over well for solid finished products. And then third, I think that, they have come to the realization, and I don't want to, be all Xbox bad, but if you don't put out games at good quality, and the reason I can say at good quality is because last year I got early review codes for Redfall, Forza Motorsport, Minecraft, and Starfield. I worked with the publisher for all those games to get early review codes, and I reviewed, I think, all of them. So I played all those games, and out of all those games, I liked a lot of parts of Starfield, but at the same token, there were a lot of parts that were significantly bugged. Redfall was just an absolute disaster. Shouldn't have come out. Minecraft, it was okay, just kind of a plug-in game. Forza Motorsport was the one that made me go, there's a problem somewhere. And the reason I say that is I have been playing Forza games since they came out. Forza Horizon 5, that game was absolutely beautiful. Ran well.
I got it. I would please keep going, but it's like it's so hilarious that what you're saying is literally verbatim the thing that I said in the walk up to the launch. That I had.
It's just I think I have about 45, almost 50 hours into Forza to be able to play it and look at it, and I think that whenever I do get an early review code, I try to do my due diligence before I put something out. And when I looked at the previews of the game, because when I was reviewing the game, I was like, man, there's some issues here in terms of the graphical, fidelity of what I'm seeing on both across the board. And so I went and I looked at the videos that they showed of what was supposed to be gameplay footage. And I was like, this does not look anywhere close to what it is supposed to look like. And that game I think was the one that just did it for me in terms of, I don't know what's going on there, but there is a huge disconnect. And maybe I should, some people say, well, Halo Infinite should have been enough for you. But, there was some issues at that studio in general. So I guess I kind of gave a little bit of a pass there. But when Forza came out, that was the one I was like, man, there is some serious disconnect, because Forza has become almost a staple point for Xbox. They bring out Formula One cars and Bugattis and everything else on stage to roll out these games. And then when the game came out, I'll just say this. If Hellblade 2 comes out next month, or is it May something? Start of May. If that game comes out and there is a significant degradation in the graphics that we saw in Forza, that's going to be a huge problem for Xbox. That is going to show there is an issue somewhere. And I don't know where that issue is, because I don't work there. I'm just a consumer.
By the way, I just want to make something clear. We're not saying there's going to be a degradation, because someone's going to be, they're saying there's going to be a degradation.
Nope.
We're not saying that. No.
I'm saying if.
There's an if. It's a hypothetical.
Big if. If Hellblade 2 comes out and it does not run well on the Xbox Series X, I think that's going to be a huge problem for them, for all these other games that are going to come out. I hope that it does run well. I'm going to play it because, honestly, Hellblade, the first one, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the story of it and kind of the background of it and what that studio did and what they made. But after last year, if that game comes out and it does not run to the potential that it should, that would be a problem. That would be a huge, huge problem, because then you're going to start to question Avowed. You're going to start to question Fable. You're going to start to question all these other games. And they have so many studios that, I think that's going to be the next, I don't want to say wait until, right? Like, that's kind of the meme. But I think that's going to be the game, at least for me, that if I see those graphical degradation, if anyone clips this, that would be a significant problem for me, and say that Phil Spencer would if they mess up Hellblade 2, that would be I think that they would probably be trying to get a new person in his position, to be honest.
So Cease, I want to go back to Forza, because, I said, your voice track was literally verbatim what my voice track was, September, October of last year. What were your feelings and your projections, right, or just your thoughts of like what was going on and what you were going to receive, like, between 2020 up until the release last year?
You mean my expectations kind of going into it?
Of Forza and Turn 10 and yeah.
I expected Forza Horizon 5 on steroids, honestly. I expected it to run extremely well. I expected the cars and the racetracks to really just feel like you were there. I mean, I probably have 90 hours in Gran Turismo, and I was expecting that quality with Turn 10's kind of, I don't want to say magic, but kind of the Turn 10 feel of it that they've had on previous motorsports, and I did not get that at all. It was not. You could see glimpses of it, but there was something off, and they didn't finish it.
Did did you have any questions about like why Forza was not there at the launch of the Xbox Series, and or just kind of anything, what did you think did you notice or think of anything about them like not being on the historical release cadence that the Forza series had been on?
Yeah, the delay caused me a little bit of concern, if that's what you're meaning in terms of that delay that took place. And then when they wouldn't give a release date at the developer, what was that thing called? A developer direct?
January of 23. Yeah.
Yeah, when they didn't give a release date, that was kind of concerning for me. I was like, man, that doesn't, if we're within this window of it coming out this year, I'd like to start seeing some release dates. And then when I'll tell you what really caused me concern before I even started to play the game is they started talking about the things that weren't going to be in the game on release.
Yeah, right before Gamescom, and when the word also came out that people weren't going to be allowed to go hands on with the demo.
Yeah, with the demo, that was kind of my this isn't Turn 10. This doesn't seem like because if you look at the previous Turn 10 games that they've done, they're very confident in them. And honestly, rightfully so, because despite what anyone else might think, I've always enjoyed the Forza series. Now I enjoy Horizon a lot more because of the off-road, setup that it has, but I've always enjoyed the Forza Motorsports. And this one that's why I said there's something that is off within the development cycle of these games. And I don't know what it is. And we may never know, but I wasn't concerned when it first got announced. I had no concerns when it first got announced. I was like, oh man, this game's gonna freaking crush. And then my concern levels started to go up now that I kind of more in the industry a little bit more, dealing with some devs and stuff like that. Those delays and not putting that release date on a game like Forza, that was the big concern. And then, like you said, the lack of the demo. I don't know that I've ever seen them, and I could be wrong, someone will probably correct me later. I don't know that I've ever seen them go to an event when they have a game coming out that year and they not have a demo. I think that was the first time.
Yeah, at least a demo that was like made available for like the media to go hands on with it.
Correct.
That was just like the X factor of Turn 10, right? In the Twin Peaks of Turn 10 that has been going on since 2020. Because it was super strange to me that like it wasn't that the game wasn't there at launch of the Xbox Series X. It was super weird to me that it wasn't addressed and no one spoke to it. It was also super weird to me. I often attribute like the weirdness in the Xbox voice track to me that I really like anchor on is in 2000 was the showcase of June 2022. And now that we have the leaked emails and we saw all of like the Keystone Cop stuff that was going on in May, right before that showcase about like, it was like that line from Top Gun. It was like, where'd who go? When Phil looked at the release slate and he was like, hey guys, we don't have anything for 2022 now that Starfield has slipped. In that whole like literally who's on first, Abbott and Costello routine, right? That went on an email, right? But it was flabbergasting to me before that point in the timeline. Of course, we didn't have those emails then, but when they did an event earlier that year, and the voice track was Turn 10 has started work on Forza Motorsport. That word was put out in 2021, and I'm like, what? I'm like, this studio hasn't done anything that we know of since Forza Motorsport 7. Like you launched the new box last year, and you're telling me they just started on Forza Motorsport? Like something like, I mean, that went off like a rotten egg in a swamp. I'm like, what is going on here?
Yeah, I wish I knew what some of the issues were, but I don't think that anyone, even the most hardened Xbox fans, I don't know that you could sit here right now and be like, there's not an issue. And when it comes to leadership, like I know that kind of the conversation was about Phil Spencer and the job that he's done. Like, shit rolls downhill, right? Like the leadership role, you're in charge. You're the one that's responsible. But you have to have people, below you that make up that hierarchy that are also doing their part. And I just, Phil can't be everywhere, but at some point I think that they're in the last, especially in the last 4 years, like there should be some type of internal reporting that they're doing of where games are at. And I'm sure that's taking place to some extent. But, like the one thing that really concerned me about and really, I guess I should back up before Forza, was when Redfall launched and Phil made a comment. I don't remember what show he was on, but Phil made a comment that their internal review of Redfall was much higher.
That was at the. When did Redfall launch? Was that a May launch?
It was a May launch.
That was on the XCast where he.
Is that what it was?
Yeah, he did. So, he had his apology tour. Yeah.
Yeah, it was right.
And so that really concerned me of who reviewed that internally. Like obviously it's normally a company that comes in and does the consulting to do that. But what was the, that alone right there concerned me. Like you pushed that game out knowing that that's what it was going to be. There is something. There's no reason that game should not have been at 60 FPS because they were able to push it out a little bit later, a couple months later. I personally think, and people are going to get pissed off. I don't care. I personally think it's the development with the Xbox Series S and the X. I don't know if they still have the parity clause internally at Xbox that you make one. If you're going to make a game, it's got to run on both. I think they still do. I'm happy to be wrong, but I personally think
they do, and I think I want to say they lifted it for Larian and Baldur's Gate 3.
Yeah.
So that
because Larian basically said the game's not coming unless you do this.
Yeah.
But I think that's the only thing that I can think of that would cause some of these issues because the game, even on the Xbox Series X when it comes to Forza, there is some reason that it's held back. And I don't know what it is. I wish that I knew, but that was the game, like I said, a couple times that really showed me, man, there is a significant problem there that, that they're trying to run this almost like software instead of, game development. And, maybe the blame needs to go a little bit higher than Phil Spencer, maybe the blame on some of these issues he doesn't control. And, yes, he's the CEO of Xbox, but he answers to somebody, and somebody that somebody is within Microsoft. I actually think he has more than just Satya Nadella above him. I think he's got like 3 or 4 of the people based off their hierarchy that got leaked.
Yeah, but his line of communications is directly with Satya. I mean, that was
right. That
was made for him before he was even designated as CEO of Xbox.
Correct.
Yeah.
And I just think that what conversations have taken place, because obviously Phil, I mean, I have to think he's a gamer. I mean, the dude does play games. He talks about games, things like that. And you can tell that he plays games, and he has to know that the quality that these games are coming out is not what they should be coming out at. And so I wonder what pushback is coming down from the top that is preventing these games from finishing their development cycle, especially a game like Forza. That Forza should not have released like that. I mean, it got praise. People are going to say, well, look at the Metacritic score. Look at the user score. I don't give a damn what I guess I should have asked before I came on here if I could cuss, but
Yeah,
I don't
can.
care
You're
what.
fine.
Okay, I don't care what anymore what the Metacritic score is. I just don't. I look at user scores because those are the people that get their hands on it and get to play it. And there were parts of Forza that I liked, but the overall performance of it was not to the level of what I expect from Turn 10.
Hey, let me ask something to Detect the Seeds. Real quick, I want to welcome Forte to the show. Do you think that part of the pivot that we're seeing, and Christopher Drink said this, that he's heard that Christopher Drink of GameIndustry.biz. By the way, again, if you're not getting your news from GameIndustry.biz, excuse me, I encourage you to visit their website. They are great in their coverage of the video game industry. But Christopher Dring had said that he's heard that they are in fact more games, that the majority of their Xbox games are going to be going to rival platforms. He said the majority of Xbox games. So do you get the sense that this is what I said earlier? I said, we have these data points that we can look at that show us that under his leadership, they're not doing as well, right? And do you think that part of this pivot, and I've heard different stories from different people who potentially have some insight into behind the scenes, but I've heard that that part of this move is because of the leadership not being happy with the performance of the platform right now. Coupled with the fact that they just made this huge $1 billion acquisition of Activision.
Yeah, I mean, I talked about this when I was on with Gaz a couple months ago, and I do think that these games that they're going to have as first party, and I said on the podcast, I don't know if they'll do all. They may hold some back, but at this point, who knows? I do think that they're going to go after that high margin territory on other platforms, and just see, kind of where that goes. They started with, let's see, Hi-Fi Rush. I think Grounded comes out over there this month. I don't remember the launch date for Sea of Thieves, but I do think that you will see that because they have seen and understand now, and I think that they don't really care about what their hardware sales are because they know they can't catch up to Nintendo and PlayStation. And I said on Gaz's stream, and he said I sound like Phil Spencer, but it is what it is when you look at the overall, company value. They don't see PlayStation and Nintendo as rivals. They see them as revenue streams. They look at Apple and Google as their rivals because that's what Microsoft is looking at. Xbox is, essentially a subsidiary of Microsoft.
And so there's the disconnect.
That's the disconnect.
Yeah.
And so they're looking at these other areas of, hey, where can we make more money? Satya Nadella has been on record saying he doesn't want exclusives. He does not want to have exclusives. He's good with putting that everywhere, like they do with software. And so I do think that they have accepted that, we're in third place. I think they're still going to make hardware. It sounds like they're going to come out with probably some type of handheld / docking device, if that is the case, which Phil seems to be making some insinuations that that's probably the case. And I think that this is something that they not only need to do, but they have to do. And they may keep games back for a little bit, but I did not. When I watched that Phil Spencer and Sarah Bond and Pete Hines interview update, man, that was some straight up, that was some corporate speak, dude. I work for a multi-billion-dollar company, and that was corporate speak to the finest. Phil Spencer has that job for a reason because he's very good at corporate speak. And I think that if anyone still thinks that Starfield and some of these other games are not coming to the PlayStation platform, maybe Nintendo and these other outlets, I think they are. I think everything is up for discussion. I think every single game that they come out with is up for discussion of going to another platform because it is a high revenue stream. They may even just do all digital over on PlayStation and Nintendo when Nintendo Switch 2 comes out. You cut out all those different costs to your margin, and your margin goes up, right? You don't have to come out with a physical disc. You don't have to pay a retailer's fee. You just put it over onto their store, and your margin stays high. And so I think you don't become a $3 trillion company for no reason. And I think that at the top of Microsoft, that's what they're looking for, is those high margin returns to make up for the $125 billion or whatever it is that they've spent. And that's how they're going to get it back.
Yeah, just want to clarify. And I think it was just a administrative error. So of course the business update was Spencer, Sarah Bond, and Matt Booty. Pete Hines had actually departed the company.
I'm sorry.
No worries. And just to kind of amplify what you said or add on to what you said, I think Microsoft definitely looks at Amazon, Apple, Meta, and Google as competitors. But even that is subject to what line of business you're talking about. They're also often customers are revenue targets for Microsoft as well. And definitely what Satya, right? We go back to the famous thing that I always talk about, Windows Phone, but really that was kind of the genesis of it when we really started hearing about it. And when what was his name escapes me, but I'm sure I'll remember what it was. But when we go back to the way Office was being run, this is Steven Sinofsky, the guy who was in charge of Office, and around that time, right, Satya started saying, hey, I don't want to hear about exclusive features, right, for Office that are exclusive to Windows, start putting that stuff on iOS and on Android, right, and those features started going to those platforms instead of Windows Phone. That's kind of what we're seeing now, right? Satya doesn't want to hear, Satya doesn't get, and somebody in the chat mentioned it, right? Satya started to pay a little more attention now. I mean, BRAP has mentioned, you go back a few years ago, Satya didn't even know that the Xbox Series had released or not, right? But I think he's paying more attention now, and he's asking questions. And at some point, I feel pretty sure in the last couple of years, in the last year in particularly, somebody, probably as they were starting to get ready for the trial, right, because he had to really brush up on, somebody started talking him through what this whole notion of exclusives was. And I'm sure he was looking at the people talking to him. It was probably Booty, Bond, and Phil. I'm sure he was listening to this explanation about the notion of console exclusives and looking at them like they had three heads. What the hell are you guys talking about? Right? We make software and we keep it exclusive to our hardware. That A, makes no sense, and that B, skates directly against, right, what my philosophy and what my imperative has been for this corporation. And you guys need this. That's I didn't realize this. Years ago, you guys agreed you were going to align to cloud and align to these other things that made you synonymous with the rest of the corporation. This is yet another thing, right, that you need to squeegee out of the formula, because that we as a corporation make software, and that software, it gets deployed to wherever the customers are. And if the customers aren't on an Xbox and they're on the Nintendo Switch, right, and its successor, and they're on PlayStation, then you guys need to take that software and put it where the customers are so that we can get the revenue off of it.
And I think that somebody in chat mentioned about people still want physical media too. And I think, yes, that's true. But a corporation, if they are putting in this particular scenario, right, if they are putting that game over on another platform and they want to capture as much margin as they possibly can, and you have a PlayStation 5 and you really want to play that game, you're going to buy it digital, and they know it. And so I can appreciate wanting to have that physical copy of something and hold on to that. But at the end of the day, when we're talking about these games that are going to go over from Microsoft or from Xbox over to PlayStation or over to Nintendo, I really think I would not be surprised if it is an all digital approach in doing that, because they want to capture as much margin as they possibly can. And you cut out. I don't work in retail, so somebody can correct me on the margins. As much as, well, I think Gaming Forte, I think he works at GameStop or something. Retailers make a decent margin off of game
20%.
sales. Yeah. So if they can cut that out and they just go straight to selling digital and they make you buy it because you really want to have it, that's margin that they just captured in their pocket, and that they're not paying to a distribution source of a GameStop, of a Best Buy, of a plug in whatever big box retailer you want. So I definitely think that these games we're talking about that are going from Xbox first party studios over to other platforms, I would be highly surprised, and I happy to be wrong, but I would be highly surprised if we see physical copies of those games down the road. I think it'll be digital.
Yeah, no, I could definitely see that. That's a great point. Forte, I want to rope you in the conversation here before we wrap up, because I do have a hard stop this evening. I have to get up very early tomorrow morning. What are your thoughts, Forte?
No, I mean, he's basically said everything that a lot of people are kind of ignoring when it comes to a lot of the situation that's kind of happening with Xbox. A lot of it mostly just also comes back to the fact that, once you spend so much money, the oversight gets higher and higher. And that's the one thing about that I think is truly happening over at Xbox now. It's like, we can kind of let be when we spend, it's crazy when you say you can let be when you spend $10 billion on something, but to Microsoft, that isn't the biggest sum of anything. But when you spend 70, it's like, that's huge, especially when you're talking about the portfolio things that they have purchased in the past. It's like some of the biggest stuff they ever purchased in the history of the company. So that basically has to turn. We can't just let the entity that we're actually putting that money into flounder anymore. Or if it's going to flounder, we're going to do everything we can to make sure that we are capitalizing on the life that it still has, with inside that thing. So I just think at this point, like he just said, putting their games on other platforms is like the easiest solution to kind of fix a problem that was created by basically a lack of games across their platform for an entire generation and a half almost. They came out with games. I mean, there was, nobody's going to say games didn't come out, but it wasn't the stuff that compelled people. Like I always say, you had to compel people on other platforms that have a staunch belief that that another platform is just better than the one that you have. People just feel like PlayStation is the more premium console. And on top of just premium console, they also think it's just the more popular one, because the people that buy that platform in the droves are the people that just know what PlayStation is. They know that there's going to be a PlayStation 6, and they know PlayStation 5 was right around the corner. So that is something that not only that works in PlayStation's favor, it works to the detriment of what Xbox does too, because, they're not thought of that way. So it's just ultimately going to keep coming back to the fact of what does the future look like? And like Logic said earlier, they were talking about all of these games, that was coming in 2024, but how many of them have release dates? Like we know what the window is, but we also knew what the window was in 2022. We knew what the window was in 2023, and the window got changed. We have a deliverable for a game in May in Hellblade that's coming out this year, which is great. I'm going to play it. I love that. I love the first one. But what about everything else? So there's just questions that need to be asked around that in itself. And then it always comes back to, hardware. So the fact that all of these conversations are still talking about hardware, which is the one thing you told people that you truly, I mean, you didn't come out and say you ain't care about hardware, but when you tell people that they don't need it, that's you pretty much telling people point blank that, okay, we sell hardware, but you don't need it. But you're talking about hardware. And that's the one thing, going back to the whole thing about controllers and stuff. They will always talk about brand new controllers, new SKUs, new colors. Remember the old, what's the name? I think it was at Gamescom where they had a bucket, had a table with a glass full of controllers in it, like it was a bunch of apples. And everybody just made a meme out of that. Like Xbox talks about controllers more than they talk about games. So same things happening right now. We're talking about the future of what Xbox is going to be when it comes to consoles and everything like that. But we haven't really talked about what's happening with these new games that's coming out. These games that's coming out this year. So that's also part of the problem. For myself, it doesn't bother me as much anymore, just for the simple fact that I have the ability to play games wherever I want to play them. So if they put their games on PlayStation, they put them on PlayStation. I already started transitioning myself to playing on my PC more than anything, which I've always could have done. I just preferred. And the fact that most of my friends now have kind of transitioned over to PC, it's made it an easier bid for me to do. But they are just, right now it's floundering, and I don't know what they can do to kind of change it, because I feel like with all the stuff with the PS5 Pro coming out, I don't think they're in a position to come out with a SKU that's going to be enticing enough to make people want to come back over to Xbox or play on the Xbox. And even if they did come out with something, I feel like that's pretty much not fixing the main issue that they have when it comes to like what PlayStation is going to give them and what Xbox can bring to the table. Because I feel like Xbox has to drastically outperform what PlayStation has in order to even be in a conversation to have people even look at the Xbox differently than what it was now. You know, the main reason that they had people looking differently back in 2005 or 2006 is for the simple fact that they just came out early. You know, they were the only thing on the block, which gave people the ability and developers the ability to like hone in on that system for a whole entire year. And then just the adoption rate of the PlayStation 3 wasn't there. And then we all saw what happened at the end of that generation. By the time everything got caught up and developers found a way to harness what the system was, games started coming. So ultimately, it always comes down to games. And it comes down to what you are doing for your consumer base during the time of the lead up of all those games coming out to make them feel like, oh, let's support you in the next thing that you do. Right now, people just don't even know what Xbox is anymore for the most part. And I can definitely understand and see people's talking point on that.
No, thank you for that, Forte. I do need to wrap up the show because, like I said, I do have a hard stop. But I want to thank everyone in the live chat for hanging out with us this evening. Really appreciate the support as always. Please hit that like button, helps out the channel. If you do, subscribe, hit the bell notification so you are alerted when we go live. Also want to give a huge thank you to our guest this evening, Detective Seeds. Now, Seeds, I don't know if you want to be found on Twitter. You do have a YouTube channel. I did drop the link earlier. Actually, I should drop that link again here in the live chat. But if you want to be found on Twitter, let everyone know where they can find you.
Yeah, at Detective Seeds on Twitter and Detective Seeds over here on YouTube. Like I said, I do reviews, previews. I do get early access to a lot of games, and I do platinum and achievement hunting. I got a South Park Snow Day up. I've done Assassin's Creed 3, GTA 3, a couple other games. So yeah, I really appreciate you having me on, man, and talking games. I know we just kind of met and started talking last week, and I just wanted to say thank you and to everyone in chat that watched and will watch later. Appreciate you taking the time to watch, and yeah, man, I just wanted to say thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you for joining us this evening. I know it was we like you said, we just met last week on Crossfire. I did by the way drop a link. Oh, you know what? I forgot a super chat. I'm so sorry, Nate Dogg. I did drop a link to Detective Seeds' YouTube channel, so please check out his YouTube channel And I got to find the super chat now. Detective C's, I'm sorry, Nate Dogg. Nate Dogg with a $2 super chat. Thank you so much. Says, Mav said there was no bad Xbox news when asked. LOL. Thank you for that super chat, Nate Dogg. And then Gaming Forte, you have a show tomorrow with the one, the only Slow-Mo Backslap.
Yeah, I do. I got to get caught up on all the stuff that's going on because I haven't been paying attention to nothing. So, tomorrow, DPS on Slow-Mo's channel, 9 p.m. Going to be a great time. If you don't know, check it out over there or check it out on the DPS proper channel. Going to be a great time. And for myself, Gaming Forte, YouTube, Twitter, or X, if you call it that. Guys, have a great week. Enjoy the games that you're playing, and enjoy the view as you play Stellar Blade, because who cares what everybody else thinks?
Also, no, thank you, Forte. And then last but not least, Game Logic. Logic, I don't know if you want to be found, but if you do, let everyone know where they can find you.
I don't want to use my time for that. I want to use my time to address a question in the chat, because I don't think we got to do it during the show. So
Lord.
It'll be quick. Maker of Chaos asks, why do people think that only Xbox delays their games? Do people forget Horizon and God of War getting delayed out of their release windows? So I'd say, first of all, I don't think people only think Xbox. I mean, I certainly don't think Xbox only delays their games. I'll just pick at it as a nit of a data point. God of War Ragnarok was delayed out of its initial release window of 2021 to 2022 because Christopher Judge got injured. Right, that is vastly different than a company with the resources the size of Xbox delaying games. And let's pick at another nit of the Starfield delay. The Starfield release date was initially whatever that emotional date is in November of 2022.
Emotional one.
Right, that Todd Howard announced, because that it plays on like historic and history and nostalgia that people have with that November date of other games Bethesda has released. Then it didn't stick the landing on that. And remember, through the summer of 2022, right, they, again, as I always say, jumped on a table up and down, set a trash can on fire, pointed at that date, and made a very big deal out of it. Mm-hmm. Then didn't stick that landing. Dragged their feet on announcing it, because in the summer showcase, they still said you're going to be playing Starfield within the next 12 months. Then come around to the January Developers Direct. They didn't speak to the Starfield release date. They just said, we're not going to talk about that one at the Developers Direct. 6 weeks later, they then announced that it was not going to make the 12-month plan, and it was delayed until fall of 2023. So that's the difference in the optics between when we talk about company performance and customer confidence that we think these companies are instilling right in their consumer base. Yes, Sony delays games. Sometimes there are circumstances around that. Whatever, but the point is that voice track is different than that example that I just picked out at Starfield. And then the last thing that I'll add is Sony is also not trying to feed a day and date subscription service. Xbox is, and Xbox is trying to feed a day and date subscription service that it told people, that it advertised to people, right? This is what you're getting for your money, right? And so if people have value that's associated with that, with a deterministic release cadence that is associated with that, and you have some consumers who are going to feel that they're not getting the value out of that subscription that they signed up for. That's the way a lot of us on the panel feel. And that's the way that I think a lot of the consumer base feels, which is why you've seen the number not move since January of 2022, because it's tightly coupled to that notion of a release cadence that comes out of the production pipeline. That's all I wanted to mention.
No, great point there, Logic. Do you have one more super chat? Alfonso Carter with a $5 super chat says, so this has become a Xbox-centric channel. I've noticed a big change. I'm not sure how you arrived to that conclusion, Alfonso Carter. Perhaps you missed the conversation earlier in the evening when we were giving our impressions of the Stellar Blade demo. So, yeah. But thank you for the super chat. No, Logic, no, thank you. And Forte, thank you. And Detective Seeds, thank you again. Would definitely love having you back on the show as a returning guest. Really enjoyed the conversation about video games this evening. So thank you again.
Yeah, absolutely. Go back anytime.
Thank you. No, I appreciate that. And look, everyone, enjoy the rest of the week. I may do a BRAP rant. If you want to give me a follow on Twitter or X, whatever the heck it's called these days, you can give me a follow there at BRAP_podcast. If you're new, hit the bell notification, or I should say subscribe, hit the bell notification so you're alerted when we go live. And then, enjoy the rest of the week. Have fun playing video games because that's what it's all about. So thank you so much again, and appreciate the support. As always, we will catch you next time.